Hello and welcome to this Zoom session this afternoon. It's evening in Australia. So this is Venerable Nissarano, if you were in any doubt as to who it was. And I am not in New South Wales, as one of the emails said. I'm actually in Victoria, which is good news because New South Wales is locked down due to a COVID-19 outbreak. So I think most of you know who I am, but I'll give a little information about myself, that I am an Australian Buddhist monk who ordained with Ajahn Brahm 23 years ago, just over 23 years ago. Actually, it's going into my 24th. And for 14 of those years, I spent almost 14 in Sri Lanka, having come to Australia in November 2019. And being caught here with COVID-19. And for 8 years of my time in Sri Lanka, I was living in a cave not far from Balangoda. So I'd just like to mention the purpose of this desana, so that we can know why we're giving this desana. And of course, I think today Mr. Kumar Punchiheva has been undertaking many meritorious acts on behalf of his late wife, Mrs. Damdara, or Dhammi, Uyan Singha, Jayawardena Punchiheva. It's quite a mouthful. And it's Mrs. Damdara's second death anniversary. So wonderful that you are remembering your wife and doing things, meritorious things in her memory. And this is a way we can pay respects to a person, is by creating good karma and by remembering them. And also, of course, being thankful to them for what we've shared in our lives, in your lives together. And of course, on an occasion like this and any death anniversary, it's also, we're giving a gift to the person who's passed away. We're giving them a gift of good karma, of pin. And they're giving us a gift too, a reminder that life is short, and that we need to do the most important things, the essential things in life, and not to waste time on things that are not so important. And so it's also, I'll mention the other things that we're remembering today, or other people we're remembering today. And later I will do a dedication of merit. And of course we're also remembering Mrs. Cornelia Vinita Jayasuriya de Silva, whose 3-month death anniversary it is. And this is Ruan and Kumar's, Punchiheva's maternal aunt. And of course Kumar and Ruan would like to also dedicate merit to the parents and grandparents, and also to Mrs. Damdara's parents and grandparents, and all the other friends and relatives who have departed from us during our long journey through samsara. There's probably innumerable. And I'd just like to also mention that this is surprise birthday blessings. This is a dedication of blessings. When we can also dedicate the energy we create through our practice, through listening to Dhamma, to doing good, offering things, doing dana, keeping sila, and developing the mind. And this, we can share the energy of this with those that are living, to dedication of blessings. So this energy can give them support, particularly if they know that we're thinking of them and wishing them well. So it's a surprise birthday blessings, a number of them actually. One for Professor Gunadia Bandaragay, whose 65th birthday is today. I hope you're watching, maybe not at the moment. And of course, Professor Gunadia is Venerable Aranavihari's brother, and Ruan's brother-in-law. So special blessings and wishes for your speedy recovery from your present health issues. And also for Kumar and Ruan's uncle, Dr. Parakrama Silva's 88th birthday today. Quite amazing. And then also the 72nd birthday of Venerable Canadian Abhiyaratana, whose birthday is actually on the 29th of June, so it's a bit early. So that's the occasion for today. And at the end of the Desana, I will also mention them again before we do the chanting, and you're welcome to join in with that. And if you wish to ask questions, we can do that at the end, after the, maybe just before the chanting, actually, if we have that opportunity. So I can now begin the Desana with the Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Great. So, the title for this Desana, as you would have seen from probably from the emails, is The Shortcut, Kindness. I know everybody likes shortcuts, don't they? They really do. And in Simla we call them ketiparas, and they are very, very popular. But oftentimes, isn't it, the shortcuts aren't so short. And they can even take longer, and they can waste our time. And I still remember Ajahn Brahm mentioning one of the occasions when he was in Sri Lanka, and he was going from Kandy, Mahanura, to Colombo. And somebody said, we'll take you on a shortcut, probably to avoid the traffic. And the shortcut ended up in Kalutra and took about 4 or 5 hours to get to Colombo. So it just shows you that sometimes these shortcuts are not so short. And it reminds me of a funny story I heard that about 2 men who were taking a shortcut one night through the local cemetery. And they were going through the cemetery and they heard this tapping. And they were totally petrified. Thought, what is this? And of course, then they came across this old man. He had a chisel and a hammer, and he was working on a gravestone. And they said to him, thank goodness, we thought it was a ghost. And he said, I'm so angry, the fools, they spelt my name wrong. So they must have got quite a surprise. So watch out for shortcuts. But some shortcuts are useful. And of course, this shortcut, kindness, is a key spiritual quality that we can develop. That's the foundation for our practice of the Dhamma. And it's an essential ingredient for happiness and well-being as well. And I remember in April, a couple of months ago, Ajahn Brahmali visited Victoria, where I am in Australia, and he gave a retreat actually on Yoniso Manasikara, basically. It was on the Sabha Asva Sutta. This is the second sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya. And after talking about this deep Dhamma for the whole time, this very deep sutta and many other suttas connected with it, his concluding comments to us at the retreat were, if you only remember one thing, remember kindness. And it really struck me, actually, because our memories, this is sati, isn't it? A part of sati is memory. And it's actually even remembering to be present is one of the most important aspects in meditation. Remembering to be present and letting go of the past and the future. But a very important aspect is remembering the Buddha's teachings, his instructions. And I notice for myself, and I know it's true of most people actually, that we are so forgetful. And it's very difficult for us to keep things in mind, whether it be the breath in meditation or the Buddha's instructions in the Noble Eightfold Path. And so something very simple, very essential, like developing kindness, can be something that we can remember. It's one small thing. Kindness at all time, kindness to ourselves, kindness to others. And it has to be, of course, genuine kindness. It can't just be put on, you know. And then when we repeat something over and over again, it becomes part of our character. It becomes a habit, but in this case, a very good habit for us. And with these sorts of thoughts in mind, it reminded me of a saying by the Dalai Lama, one of my favourites actually, where he said, "My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness." I thought that's great. It was really a wonderful quotation. And it reminds us that the Dalai Lama often emphasises key human values like kindness, tolerance, patience and peace. And I do remember seeing him many, many years ago in Perth, in the Anglican Cathedral was. Not so many people. And then again I saw him in Melbourne here with thousands of people at a stadium. I think it's wonderful that a spiritual leader like that can fill these huge stadiums and people really value it and come away with a wonderful message that can help them in their lives. So this kindness is really at the heart of Buddhism. And, you know, I often say this, you know, the not wishing to harm any being, this is avihingsa, you know, harmlessness, is such a core foundation to the Buddhist path. And it has to be this harmlessness to ourselves and to others. And we keep in mind that the things that really harm us, the things that really hurt us, are our own defilements of desire, aversion, anger, jealousy, envy, delusion. The list goes on, doesn't it? But if kindness is our religion, we are definitely in a safe place. We're coming from a good place. And of course, kindness brings its own reward, and that is, it leads to happiness within ourselves, a sense of contentment and a sense of self-esteem, because we feel good about where we're coming from. And more than that, kindness is such a good indicator of our spiritual development. People are always looking for markers on the path, aren't they? Looking for what stage they're at. But I think the stage we're at is we can often see in terms of the qualities, the positive qualities like kindness, these positive emotions that we've developed, generosity and many other ones. And when we have this kindness, there's absolutely no way we can go wrong in practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. So I thought just a little bit, I think everybody knows what kindness is, but I thought I would mention what it is. Of course, I think in Sinhala we say it, I often hear karunawa, or I often hear karunavantai, you know, someone who's very kind. But I know there's also upakariya, so in Sinhala. But it really encompasses not only loving kindness, maitri or metta, that is definitely an aspect of kindness, but it also has that quality of compassion, karuna, which is like taking care of ourselves. We've got to have compassion for ourselves for certain, as well as for others. And this joy with others, happiness or success, this mudita, and equanimity as well. So that these are, that's upekkha, and this equanimity is an acceptance of ourselves and others in a kindly way, and it has the quality of patience and tolerance with it as well. And of course, you know, we won't always agree with each other, but we can agree to disagree. So and that is sort of respectful, which is an aspect of kindness as well. Being respectful, respecting the differences between people, ourselves and others. And of course, kindness also has this quality of thoughtfulness, going out of our way for others, thinking of what they need. And generosity, giving, sharing, these are great ways to to interact with people in a kind way. So these are all, ways of looking at kindness, as I'm going to talk about this afternoon, or this afternoon for you. And I think all of us, I'm sure the people listening to this, have met kind people, and they can be so impressive. And it goes to the heart, for sure. I've met monks, many monks, nuns, laymen and laywomen, upasikas and upasikas, that are so kind, very kind. And I've noticed that in my experience, monks like to stay with a chief monk who is kind, a local hamdru who is kind. So kindness, kind chief monks definitely attract other monks to come and stay with them. And I know Ajahn Brahm, for instance, he said the reason he ordained in the Thai tradition was because the Thai monks in London smiled a lot. They were very kind. And so that encouraged him to ordain in Thailand. And I know for myself, Venerable Vimlanyana, who is the chief monk of a meditation centre here in Victoria, he's here now actually, called Ripplebrook. He's very kind, and because of that, the community that he built up in Tanjantana, near Balangoda, has grown, and it's now quite a large group of monks, 30 or 40 monks. So that's wonderful. And of course, the kindness has to be combined, doesn't it? People with the Noble Eightfold Path, because people say, oh, well, are people in other religions kind? Of course they are, But they have not necessarily practicing it in the context of the Noble Eightfold Path, and particularly coming from right view. And that reminds me of Ajahn Brahm's saying. He says, the shortcut, this is another shortcut, is the Noble Eightfold Path, because people are often looking for, one aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path that they can practice, so it makes it simpler. But it's really the whole Noble Eightfold Path. So how do we practice? How do we develop kindness? And of course, one of the best ways to develop kindness is by repetition, doing kind things, saying kind things, and particularly thinking kind things. This is where it's all coming from. So in the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path too, that brings up kindness for us too. It's a very important aspect, particularly right intention. So I talk about that in a minute. And also we can develop kindness or positive emotions through proper attention, yoniso manasikara, and I'll talk about that too. And also keeping in mind hiriotapa as well, that sense of conscience and awareness of the consequences of our actions, our speech, and our thoughts. So I think, so now I'll just continue and say and I like very much, Ajahn Brahm has this idea for meditation of a peaceometer, and it's a great idea that we can see how peaceful we are as an indicator of our state of meditation. And I think the peaceometer is a very good idea in meditation, but it's also good for the day too, to develop peace in what we're doing in the day. It's something we can visualize, like a speedometer. We can see if we're more or less peaceful. But it's and we can ask ourselves, how much peaceful intention is in my mind when I'm acting, speaking, or thinking. But at the same time, I thought, well, what about a kindometer? We could have a kindometer. How much intention in my mind is kind when I'm speaking, acting, or thinking? And of course, Ajahn Brahm has the idea of mindfulness and kindness together, which he calls kindfulness. So it's very important for us to know where we're coming from, isn't it? When we are speaking, acting, or thinking, to know where we're coming from. And we can have like an emotional checklist, and this can help us with our kindometer. And we can think, is what I'm doing, saying, or thinking kind? That's a very useful thing. Is it tolerant and respectful? Is it leading to harmony? Is it peaceful and is it wise? Or is it the opposite? Is it unkind, intolerant and disrespectful, leading to disharmony, unpeaceful and not so wise? So we can, when we are practicing the Dhamma, we can often think we are practicing the Dhamma, but we in accordance with the Dhamma, so that means with wholesome states of mind. But we can sometimes, we're not really aware that the defilements have crept in, and particularly ego, that can really throw things out. So it's obviously often easier to see things in hindsight rather than at the time. I know quite a few people have really good understanding, intellectual understanding of the Dhamma, and they can quote Pali terms and they can argue fine points of Dhamma and Abhidhamma. But they may not necessarily be practicing what they preach. They may not necessarily be coming from a good place. They may get upset, angry when those people disagree with them or have differences of opinions. But if they develop kindness, this is a foundational quality for our practice, for our spiritual growth. And that protects us against so many negative emotional states. We call it vyapada vitaka, and I'll talk about that. That's wrong intentions or intentions of ill will. So this is a very key aspect to kindness, really, and to practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. And that's right intention, or as Ajahn Brahm calls it, right motivation. And it shows where we're coming from. So we have a good idea of what state of mind, what emotions we're coming from. And that shows we have to be practicing in accord with these right intentions in order for the whole path to be right. Each aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path has to be right, but particularly right view and right intention have to be right. So this second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path is a very good indicator of where we're at and what we need to develop in our practice. Because if we're not practicing right intention, if we're not coming from a sense of letting go, of kindness, of caring, of harmlessness, then we're not practicing in the right way. Then our speech, our actions, our livelihood, our effort, our mindfulness, and our stillness or one-pointedness of mind will not be right. It can't be right if we're not coming from the right place. So it's very important, this right intention. And I often reflect that our emotions are much easier for us to see than these concepts and ideas, which right view is quite a few concepts and ideas, but right intention, it's hard to fool oneself if one has got anger or ill will, or one's wishing harmful thoughts, hurtful thoughts to people, or one's very greedy. It's very hard to actually not see that for oneself. They're quite easy to see. So I know I'll just talk a little bit about right intentional, right motivation. So the first one, of course, is nekkhamma. This is renunciation. In English we call it renunciation. And it's letting go of our desires, especially for the experiences of the five senses. That's usually where a lot of desire is hanging out. So it's Ajahn Brahms, of course, his words for them are letting go, and to being kind and being gentle. And they are essential qualities. And as I mentioned, the first one is letting go, is nekkhamma, or renunciation. Renunciation is a hard word in English, but letting go is much easier for us to understand, though not always easy to do. And it's the letting go of the desires for the five senses, the experience that we have for them. because we're looking, when we're looking for our happiness through the five senses, it means we're not paying attention to what's going on inside. So the idea of Nekama is that we are happy to be at home with ourselves, to go inside. Because if we're looking for our happiness out in the world, we will not. The mind, we won't get to know the qualities of the mind. And of course, it's also this letting go, or this letting go of desire, is also the opposite, is to be thinking of others, what they need, and of giving to others. These are sort of the actions we can take to lessen this self-concern, which is interested in going out through the senses. And we can develop this renunciation or letting go. And of course the next one, the avyapada sankappa, this is the intention of non-ill will. Now this is really where kindness hangs out. And it includes all the states not coming from ill will. So it's a lot of states really, as I mentioned, loving kindness, maitri, mudita, joy at other successes and happiness, equanimity, and it includes things like, and equanimity, I like in terms of feelings, emotions, the sense of acceptance of things as they are at the present, acceptance of ourselves, acceptance of others. But this non-ill will, this avyapada, includes patience, thankfulness or gratitude, katanyuta, contentment, respect and faith. So a lot of good qualities there. And of course the last of the three, which Ajahn Brahm refers to as being gentle, is non-harming, avihingsa. And that's of course got the qualities of compassion, gentleness, softness, patience, respect, garawa, and equanimity again. So these are the intentions that we can use to develop the good qualities, the good intentions, the right intentions. We can be aware when our intentions are not right and give more emphasis to these positive ones. And of course there are other aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path that really support developing kindness. And a very good way, as you all will know, is giving or sharing something with others. And it doesn't have to be something material. It can be nice words, it can be nice actions, and it can, of course, be thoughts. And it can be with whoever we meet, giving to many people, not just the Sangha. That's great, because when we do that, we're making merit. We make merit with other people as well, when we're kind. And it can be, as I say, even a smile sometimes is quite a gift to people. And I know a very common thing is to share things on the internet. So people are always sharing things, and hopefully nice things that will uplift people. Which reminds me of a nice saying about kindness, actually, which came from Princess Diana. Amazing. I didn't know she said this, but they say she did. She says, carry out a random act of kindness with no expectation of reward, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you. And of course they will. We call it karma. It will come back to us like a boomerang. And of course this kindness is very important. This giving, as I say, giving and sharing, very important with those people that we're close to. Because otherwise we can take each other for granted. And also it's a nice way of showing we're thinking of the person and this kindness, and we feel good about it as well. And of course, there is kindness in keeping precepts, because when we keep precepts, we are freeing others from fear and anxiety. They don't have to worry that we're going to harm them through our actions or our speech. So that's a really useful thing. And of course, kindness, we're developing kindness through the meditation practice. When we develop mindfulness, of course, When we're in the present moment, we've let go of the past and the future. This is a kind place, as Ajahn Brahm calls it, kindfulness. And we're not thinking, not bringing up past hurts, and we're not going off into the fears and worries about the future, or excitement maybe, about the future. And meditation is where we can really recondition some of the habits of our mind. We can create new habits, new grooves in the mind. And this is why meditation is so important for us. We can develop this maitri, loving kindness, metta. We can call it friendliness. And it's the heart of kindness, really. And we can develop these other Brahma viharas, these divine abidings, so mudita, joy with other successors, and reduce our envy and jealousy of other people, and equanimity, acceptance as well. So that's another way we can develop this kindness, is through practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, particularly that second factor of right intention or right motivation. And as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about how do we develop kindness, another way, it's at the sort of right at the roots of our practice actually, is paying proper attention or wise attention, yoniso manasikara. And Mr. Kumar asked me if I could say a few words about yoniso manasikara. And I thought I'd mention the definition of yoniso manasikara that the Buddha uses, which is from the Majjhima Nikaya, the Sabbasava Sutta. It's in this translation, all the defilements. And it says, monks, I say the ending of defilement is for one who knows and sees, not for one who does not know and see. For one who knows and sees what? Very practical, actually. Proper attention, yoniso manasikara, and improper attention, ayoniso manasikara. When you pay improper attention, defilements arise, and once arisen, they grow. When you pay proper attention, defilements don't arise, and those that have already arisen are given up. So this is a very important teaching of the Buddha about how we can, as it were, learn from our experience. It sounds a bit abstract, but in actual fact, it is seeing the results of how we're looking at things, how we attend to things, the attention we're paying to things. Because when we pay attention to our experience, whether it be through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, or touching, and we get a negative or a defilement arising, we know for sure this is improper attention. And we can learn from that experience. And the converse is true. When we pay attention and wholesome, positive emotions and qualities arise in the mind, we know this is yoniso manasikara, this is proper attention. So we can monitor in our life, we can see this in our life quite easily in a sense, that the way we're looking at things, what's it giving rise to? And that can inform our understanding of what's going on in the mind and what qualities we need to develop in the way we're looking at things. So this is a very helpful way to monitor our experience. You know, if we are talking to somebody and we get angry and irritated, we know immediately. Well, we may not know, but we should know immediately. This is ayoniso manasikara, this is improper attention. This is not for my benefit and well-being, or probably for the other person either. So it's a very practical way, even though it sounds abstract, to actually practice the Buddha's teachings, and enables us to really recognise the positive and the negative states and qualities that we're experiencing in the mind, and to train ourselves to let go of those unwholesome, those negative qualities, and to develop the positive ones, the wholesome ones, kusala, like kindness. And of course, when we do that, letting go of the negative or avoiding the negative, developing the positive and maintaining it, that is right effort. And that's a very important aspect of the path. But it requires, this yoniso manasikara requires quite a degree of self-awareness or reflection. And we need to be absolutely honest, don't we, with ourselves, what's going on in our experience. And so that's very important. Sometimes we can meet, and I have met people like this, sincere practitioners, but they don't have much awareness of where their action, speech and thinking is coming from. And I'm quite amazed sometimes. I think, wow, because if we don't have that awareness, that self-awareness, it means that practicing the path, knowing what's going on in the mind, is very, very difficult, and it could be slow progress. But one application of yoniso manasikara that I often use for myself, I think it's so practical, is the Buddha's advice to his own son, Venerable Rahula, in the sutra from Majjhima Nikaya 61. I think it's called the Rahula Ovada, Ambalatika Rahula Ovada. So the advice to Rahula at Ambalatika. And it's really the Buddha's checklist. And it's based on, really, yoniso manasikara. It's yoniso manasikara in action. And the Buddha recommends before we act, before we speak, and before we think, we should reflect. Does this lead to harm or benefit for myself, for others, for both? And if it's harmful, we should desist. If we haven't undertaken it, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't say that, shouldn't think that. And the second thing is it coming from a wholesome or an unwholesome intentional motivation? So this is like samma sankappa, right intention, right motivation. And does this action, speech, or thought lead to painful or pleasant results? So this is the essence of yoniso manasikara. We're seeing the results of our experience of attending to things and seeing whether they're painful or pleasant. And of course, letting go, hopefully, of the painful ones and developing pleasant ones. So, and the other quality, of course, that helps us to develop kindness is really that sense of hiriotapa. It's related really to yoniso manasikara, that we have a sense of conscience and we're aware of the consequences of our actions and of speech and of mind as well. And this is really, really nicely, there's a nice story that bears this out, that it comes from the commentaries, and it talks about a teacher in Taxila, and he had many students, and he also had a daughter, and he was going to offer the hand of his daughter in marriage to one of the students, but the students had to fulfill a certain criteria, and he asked them they had to steal as much as possible from the village, much as possible, and presumably, and the one who stole the most would get his daughter's hand. That was the idea. But he said, but nobody must see you stealing. Well, that's, I think that would be, otherwise they'd be caught, wouldn't they? And so all of these students were quite successful. They stole lots. But one of the students hadn't stolen anything. And the teacher said to that student, why haven't you stolen anything? All the other students, they have stolen quite a lot, actually, and you haven't stolen anything. And that student said, I remembered what you said. Nobody must see you stealing, or whatever you're stealing. And he said, there was always somebody watching, there was always someone seeing me. And that was myself. So that is conscience, isn't it? That sense of conscience. So that was a very a wonderful, nice story to show how hiriotapa protects us, actually. It protects us and keeps us out of harm. But so there are some ways we can develop this kindness in our practice. And of course, we one of the things that is harmful to kindness, of course, is being right. I was just going to mention a few to finish off, and just mention that being right can be quite a kindness killer, because if we think we're right, we can do and say anything. And that was one of my favourite sayings from one of my first Theravada teachers, actually, Ajahn Jagru, was, we can be right, but it can be not good. So in other words, yes, we may be correct, but where we're coming from, our reaction is not good, it's not wholesome. And so that is a real kindness killer, as I call it. And also the other kindness killer that we find is fault finding. Fault finding is really the opposite of kindness. When we see the negative in ourselves, when we see the negative in others, in situations, this fault finding makes life quite difficult. It's something that we are trained when we, through education, to see what's missing, see the problems, do problem solving, and we can't turn it off. So we tend, and it can be useful, this quality of problem solving, but when it comes to seeing ourselves and seeing the faults in ourselves and in others and making them the most important thing, then we lose that kindness, we lose that softness and gentleness. So this is something that we can develop, actually. We can let go of. You know, this, as I say, problem solving, useful, but fault finding with ourselves, others, and situations is not so useful. And the essence of loving kindness, of course, Maitri, is seeing what's good, seeing what's right with ourselves and with others. So I'd like to conclude here by encouraging everyone to develop, as much as possible, the kindness meter, so that our actions, speech and thoughts are a blessing to us and others. For our spiritual development, so yes, for our spiritual development, it's not so much the goal that we are aiming at, which of course we're going towards awakening, towards liberation, but it's how we undertake that journey, not the destination, is the important thing. And of course, to remember Ajahn Brahm's words, let go, be kind, be gentle, just keep that in mind. That's quite simple, but kindness is even more simple. And I'll end with a comment from the Dalai Lama. And he said, there's another one on kindness, be kind whenever possible. And then he said, it's always possible to be kind. So that's quite nice. So I'll finish there. And if there are any comments, questions or complaints, we can have those now, and then I will finish with the dedication of merit. Yes, Kumar Mate?
Speak a few words about Satipatthana in short.
Satipatthana is an important part of our practice, meditation practice, and one that we can use in daily life. So it's mindfulness of the body, and that's Kaya Nupassana. It's mindfulness of feeling, or Vedana, and Ajahn Brahm calls it experience. So that is also an aspect of Satipatthana, as is mindfulness of the mind, of the citta nupassana. And that's the emotions, the moods, the qualities of the mind that we're experiencing. And of course, Dhamma nupassana, reflecting on our experience through the lens of Dhamma. So this is part of not only our meditation practice, but of our life. So the body is with us all the time, and we can reflect on the body, reflect on it internally, that, for instance, the breath is here, we're experiencing the breath, others are experiencing the breath. And we can see the factors that lead to the arising of it, and the passing away of it, the cessation of it. And develop this mindfulness, that allows us to just see this is just the body, and then we can be independent of the world. So the refrain in the Satipatthana Sutta mentions. And this is, of course, developing. Being independent is, of course, the first stage of enlightenment. So on. So this is very important. The body is with us day in, all day, and most of the night when we're aware of it. So this is an important anchor for mindfulness, for understanding. And it's not only the breath, there are many other aspects in the exercises for the mindfulness of the body. In some of them, for instance, the cemetery contemplations, the stages of decay of the body, and also the elements meditation. These are also aspects reflecting on the body as well. So this body and the Satipatthana, aspect of Satipatthana related to the body, is very important, because the body is always in the present moment, especially the breath. And this is one of the great benefits of mindfulness of the body. And it's always strange, isn't it, when the Buddha mentions that mindfulness of the body actually leads to the deathless, or to that state without death is probably a better translation, actually. Deathless state sounds like a place, and like a heavenly existence almost. So, and a second aspect, of course, the body is with us all during our conscious awareness, but also Vedana, or feeling, is too. So this is a very important aspect of Satipatthana, knowing whether the feeling, the experience we're having is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Knowing whether it's coming from a worldly context, that's from the five senses, or the mind, and whether it's a spiritual Vedana coming from within, from our practice. And it's very important for us to know what's going on in our minds. And of course, Chittanupassana, vital to know what's happening in the mind. What emotions are coming up? Is there greed, or is there an absence of greed? Is there anger, ill will, all these negative emotions, or not? Is there delusion in the mind? And often it talks about, is the mind constricted, or is the mind distracted, or is it concentrated, or we'd say, is it still coming together? Those sorts of things. So this Satipatthana, though aimed at meditation, is very important for us to know where we're at even during the day. And of course, Dhammanupassana, seeing our experience, recognising it for what it is. For instance, in meditation, even in daily life, is this the five hindrances we are experiencing at this time? And we can see there's also the 6 sense bases are in there, our experience of the 5 senses and the mind, and the 5 khandhas are in there, the 7 awakening factors are in there, and the Noble Eightfold Path is in there. So this is a way of reflecting on our experience. Usually, when we reflect on experience, we think of it in terms of me, mine, and myself. I, me, mine. And this is not a very useful way to reflect on it. And of course, to develop, the whole point with this too is to develop the understanding of 3 things. And that's, of course, anicca, or anitya in Sinhala or in Sanskrit, dukkha. Anitya is impermanence, inconstancy, transience, uncertainty, unpredictability, and dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, suffering, not getting what we want, and anatma, selflessness. Seeing that the body is just a body. It's not really my body, I don't own it. As the Lord Buddha says in the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, this doesn't belong to us. And also it's seeing that the feelings, even though we take them very personally, they are just pleasant feeling, just unpleasant feeling, just neutral feeling. That's what they are, even though we can make much more of them. And same with the mind states that we experience, the emotions, the positive and negative states of mind that we experience. So this looking through the lens of Dhamma enables us to see these deep aspects, these are the insight aspects of Satipatthana. And so this is very, very useful for us in meditation particularly, because in meditation we have the potential to reduce the 5 hindrances. And that is an absolute must if we're going to see anything really deep. If we're going to experience a peaceful, deep meditation, 5 hindrances, we have to reduce them. They have to be out of the way for some time. And the same for wisdom too. So this Satipatthana can be very useful in daily life as well as it's obviously a meditation practice. I like it in the Mahasi approach. Sometimes I use that, where you have a primary meditation object, one of the Satipatthanas, usually mindfulness of breathing, and then you regard all the others as secondary. So if there's a strong feeling coming up of pain, or even pleasure, or even an awareness of the neutral, which is very unusual, because when we have neutral feeling, it's like most people say, oh, nothing's happening. They're not aware of it, particularly. They don't pay any attention. And also, we can also, when there are states of mind, emotions coming up, we can be aware of them and then go back to the breath. And also, if we're looking at it in terms of Dhamma too, we can be aware, we're looking at it in terms of Dhamma, and then return to the breath. So that these things, often in meditation, when we have other things coming up, we tend to think of them as obstacles or hindrances. They shouldn't be there. And of course, when we have that attitude, there can be negativity in the mind. We may feel irritable, we think we need to get rid of this. But in actual fact, if they are secondary objects, we can learn from them as well. And then we can come back to the meditation, develop more stillness, more power in the mind, so that we can see things clearly. Because that is the condition for Yata Bhuta Jnana Dasana, for seeing things as they truly are, is actually when the 5 hindrances are out of the way. Either just temporarily usually, but that's enough. It opens the door to seeing a different world from what we're used to seeing the world in a different way. So there are a few comments about the Satipatthana Sutta, and now I'll do the dedications of merit. And so this is where we were. I was just about to do that. We got that question. So thank you for that question about Satipatthana. And that's certainly Satipatthana. We can develop this kindness too. It's one of the states of mind, Chittanupassana, that we can be aware of it and make it grow, give it the conditions for it to grow. So I'll do the dedications of merit to finish off, and do the chanting as well. So firstly, to dedicate the merit to the Devas who protect us, protect Dhamma practitioners, that they may assist with the overcoming of COVID-19, to free the world from this great suffering of this time, a pandemic. And secondly, to dedicate merit to all our Kalyana Mittas, particularly those spiritual friends and monks and nuns who have passed away. But of course the main purpose today is to dedicate merit to the late Mrs. Damdara Dhammi, as we often called her, Uyan Singye Jayawardhana Punchi Heba, for her 2nd death anniversary. And so that's a very nice slide here that shows you a lovely picture. And also for the late Mrs. Cornelia Vinita Jayasuriya de Silva, who passed away 3 months ago at the end of March 2021. And Mrs. Cornelia is Kumar and Ruan's, Punchi Heba's maternal aunt. And also for Kumar and Ruan's, Punchi Heba's parents and grandparents, and for Mrs. Damdara's parents and grandparents. And as I mentioned before, all other friends and relations who have departed from us during our long journey through samsara. And also the special birthday blessings. I don't know if any of the birthday people are watching, actually. It doesn't look like it. for, you can tell them about it. So special surprise birthday blessings it is for Professor Gunadia Bandarage, who's 65 today, so happy birthday. And he is Venerable Aranavihari's brother and Ruan's brother-in-law. And special blessings and wishes for your speedy recovery from your recent health issues. And also for the birthday of Dr. Parakrama Silva, who's 88 today, and he's Kumar and Ruan's uncle. So quite a few birthdays today. And also for the 72nd birthday of Venerable Canadian Abhiyaratana on the 29th of June, next Tuesday. So we can keep in mind those people for the dedication of merit, and may they have a good rebirth, may it be a happy rebirth, a fortunate rebirth where they can take the triple refuge and take the 5 precepts, practice Buddhism again. And so, and also dedication of blessings to those who are living on the occasion of their birthdays, in this case, quite a few birthdays. So if you'd like to join in, you're welcome to, with the chanting of the dedication of merit and dedication of blessings. Etavata cha amhehi sambadang punya sampadam sambe deva anumodantu samba sampati siddhya etavata cha amhehi sambadang punya sampadam Sambe Buddha Anumodantu Samba Sambati Siddhya Etavata Cha Amhehi Sambatang Punya Sampadang Sambe Satta Anumodantu Samba Sambati Siddhya Akasata Chabumata Devanaga Mahindika Punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanang akasata chabumata devanaga mahindika punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakantu desanang akasata chabumata devanaga mahindika Punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakantu twang sanda idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. May you abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may you maintain well-being in yourselves. And so we wish farewell to dear Mrs. Dhammi, and wish her well for her journey, continuing journey properly, unless she has attained Nibbana and finished with being reborn, which would be great news for her. And may all her good karma that you've made have taken you to a good and happy rebirth, and all the good karma that is being made today in your name, may it bring you that happiness. And wherever you have been reborn, that you may have the necessities of life, that you may be safe, be at peace and happy, and be able to take the refuge in the Triple Gem and be able to practice the Dhamma again. So we wish you well on your journey, Mrs. Dhamdara. And now just to finish with the final chant, Abhivadana Silisa Nijam Buddha Pachayino Chattaro Dhamma Vadanti Ayuvano Sukhang Balang Ayurarogya Sambhati Sangha Sambhati Mevacha Ato Nibbana Sambhati Iminate Samijatu Sukhihotu Sopatweva Nirogiveva Pinsidueva. Thank you for watching this, and I think this is an offering we can make of pin, of merit, for the happiness and well-being of Mrs. Damdara Punchiheva, wherever she has travelled on to. And thank you to all those who have helped with this. Thank you for the invitation, Kumar Mater, to give this desana. Thank you for the technical support from Venerable Aranavihari, who helped with the initial setup of this Zoom session. And thank you very, very much to Ayasanta, who made it possible and also prepared those slides, the slides you've seen. And after this, there'll be another slide with some information about the Arana Bhikshu Gimanhala. Thank you very much. Terawan Saranai.